All right, we'll go ahead and call fiscal court back to order for the budget workshop.
I'm trying to separate last week from this week.
Me too. In the clerk, what is the new budget we just got while they go in front of us? Is there significant changes in that? We obviously just got it.
No, that's the first reading budget. There's not a second draft yet.
Okay, this budget that we had, that we were presented on May 1st.
That's,
The one we
This is
got
identical.
today.
yes, yes.
Okay.
We only made those because it was impromptu and we
Okay.
felt like
Okay, good.
someone might not have their copy.
It's identical.
Mm-hmm.
Just extra. Okay. We could, there's no pecking order this thing, since, John Miller, sorry. I didn't mean to say that. That wasn't an insult. He's here from, I had asked and, to try to, thought maybe that there was a need that, as far as rating our roads in the county and, the cost of doing so would have a professional or an engineering firm, the way we've done it in the past. We've road department superintendent, the last time it was done, Russell, York, and Wendy did it over a 10-month period, 2 hours here and 2 hours there, and it's not done, and, you know, nobody has any problem, I don't think, in this body of paving the roads and using the monies, for the roads that need paving and having a rating system, but having, it done, right way and rate the roads and so forth. Would you like to explain what, John, you can do it more eloquently than I can do so.
That means I have to be on the record now. That's good. Okay.
What now?
Nothing. Commissioner Conk came to me just a little while back and just asked if we could put together just some rough numbers, very ballpark kind of figures on what it would cost to get in and do an assessment, an inventory assessment on all 400 some odd miles of county road in the county. Now that can take a lot of different forms. It can be complicated and complex. It can be very general, and I think the idea that I got from him was just to look over the roads, figure out how to rate them, and then rate them 1 through 3, 1 through 4. I mean, the county would have to be involved in how we want to actually do that. Just to give you a little background, DLZ has done similar things in the past. In fact, our Indiana division does this quite a bit because it's required, from what I understand, in Indiana for counties to do these with their roads from time to time. Kentucky, we've been doing state pavement rehabilitation and assessment for years. We've had the statewide contract to do that for a long time and actually just got that contract renewed for another 2 years, 3 weeks ago. So the idea being, you know, we would come in, if we were to do this, or any other firm, I'm sure would be doing the same thing, drive all 400 miles plus of county roads in the span of about a week. We hook up a camera to the bottom of the truck. We videotape all 400 miles driving at about 25 miles an hour just to get an accurate read on every road. Go back, review the tape afterwards, rate them however you want them rated, whether it be every half mile, every mile, whatever like that, and then present that to you, and then you can use it, of course, as you wish. Now, the just general ballpark, and as you know from when we did the Charcoal Bridge, we shoot everything pretty high. You know, we want to stay in the higher end just in case the county comes back with a scope of work that says it wants more detail depending on whatever factors. Just general ballpark, you're looking at anywhere from 15,000 to 20,000, but likely is not, based on the scope of work that was discussed with me and was explained to me by Commissioner Koch, you're probably looking at closer to the lower part of that. But again, these are just ballpark numbers. We put no scope of work together. I have no idea whether or not this is actually going to be something that the county wants to move forward with doing. If so, we can get together and get more definite numbers. This is just general FYI. If you thought about doing this, that's where it's at.
Well, I was, when I contacted you a couple of months ago and asked that, we all want to spend taxpayers' dollars regardless of what district, and we want to pave the roads that need to be paved, but as we all know, winters, water, several months' time a rough winter can take a toll on the roads and so forth.
Yeah, anything can happen, and the nice thing about the way we do this is you will have those records, those video records, as many copies as you need for the fiscal court, for the road department director and the road department crew out there to look over, and then you can go back 6 months after the assessment's done. We do it all in 1 week. It's a 2-man team. You can go back and look in 6 months and say, okay, what has happened? We had a rough winter. We had really bad snow problems. Some plows got into this road. We may have to adjust at that point because of some things that happened, but you've at least got video record going back of saying, okay, this was the condition it was in 6 months ago. This is what it is now. Do we need to reevaluate how we're going to do things? Then again, you can set a time frame for when you want that evaluation to happen again. And 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, whatever it may be, go back. You're not going to be able to account for, obviously, natural disasters and things like that. You can't help when there's a washout, when there's whatever that might happen. But it gives you that video record of exactly what things were in the first week of, August 2018, the second week of October 2019, whatever it is, just to be able to reference. And I think that in and of itself, having that video record would be a good tool to use later on.
And that would actually be a really good tool or a good resource if you were going to go back to the state for emergency funds.
Yeah.
Sure,
It'd probably be the best. I guess I didn't realize that would be an excellent tool in that case.
I mean, I guess the argument could be made, just thinking out loud, is that if you see a road that you might think had normal wear and tear, you can go back and reference, well, if you look at the video from miles 3 through 8 on Sid Darnell Road or whatever, obviously something happened between now and then. Was it related to the disaster in your FEMA application? And you'll be able to use that when actually building your application for FEMA funds, meeting your public threshold and things like that.
Exactly what happened with Curd Road during the ice storm.
Yeah.
A big majority of the material in that end of the county went in on Curd Road to a disposal site.
Yeah.
And we actually had to fight. We finally got it, but we actually had to fight with them about the condition before and after.
Yeah.
And that would have been a really good tool to have had in that case.
Well, that same incident happened with South Marshall Middle School when they built that, and through the traffic and another route, or a construction project, a big construction project in an area, and the traffic flow depends on the traffic count and so forth. Some of those roads get eaten up a little faster, and of course the winter and weather and water and so forth.
Industrial traffic versus residential, things like that.
I just think the system that we use now is outdated. The last time we rated the roads, and I don't agree with the way they're rated now, because they haven't been what might have been a 3 the last time it was done when Russell was here, and I asked, because I did not know how they rated the roads, and said, well, Wendy's answer to me was, well, it hadn't done since before, which obviously hadn't been done since she's taken over, but said a couple of years ago that when Russell was still here, before he left, that they went out, and I asked her, did it take you a week to, a lot of roads, 400 and something miles, and did it take you a week? She said, oh no, we did it 2 hours, when things got slow, we did it 2 hours one afternoon and 4 hours, one time and so forth. And she said, to be perfectly honest with you, the time we got through at the end of 10 months, we didn't, know a 3 from a 4, and, it's just kind of hard to do. So, this spends taxpayers' money paving the roads that that need paving, and we got professional engineers out there doing doing the job and in a timely manner, and I just think it'd be money well spent. I was surprised it wasn't any more of that, and then when I asked you to get some figures together for me to present, I couldn't, as eloquently as you stated it and so
Well,
forth.
and like I said, this is all just ballpark budgetary
Yeah.
numbers that, when you get into a specific scope of work, you start paring down the details, because as I said, when we do the pavement rehabilitation for the state, you're dealing with a lot more complex issues. You're dealing with the width of the roads, you're dealing with the
Right.
shoulders, you're dealing
Right.
with rumble strips, you're dealing with striping, you're dealing with all these different things. That, when we're looking at this, it's for just where is the money going to be best
Right.
spent
Right.
from a just outside perspective.
Right. And that's kind of what I asked you to gather those figures for, not the Rolls Royce or the Volkswagen, just kind of the right in the middle deal that would improve on the way we do it now, because that's inadequate, and just Mother Nature changes that sometime. But thanks for, appreciate you coming and
Sure.
doing that.
First thing I have on those nonprofits, I think that total needs to be put back in there from last year until you get everybody sends in the amount they need for whatever projects they have. I mean, we cut 122,000 out of it, budget.
Oh, we hadn't cut it.
Right, that's proposed cut, yes.
The budget meeting that we set for the 20th, we're going to go into detail on that.
I mean, we weren't made aware of that 2 weeks ago when we met. There was going to be no more budget workshops. So that's one of the reasons to discuss that. Is there any problem with discussing it right now, or kind of giving us a heads up? We got a draft of the budget May 1st and no other communication, and it's going to be discussed in detail. Give us a preview if you would, because as the 20th approaches, we got to put this to bed, get it to the Department of Local Government and so forth. Time is of the essence. That's why I wanted to go ahead and felt the need to discuss it.
We had a meeting yesterday, as I was explaining. We knew that there were going to be changes to this budget. With that, knowing that there's going to be changes to this budget as stated, that there was going to be discussion. The 20th, we've set a budget workshop to go into more detail of the budget and those changes.
You don't want to expound on last year, we had all the nonprofits here in the budget workshops. They identified their needs to us and sold us, all 4 voting members of this court, of their needs, and we either approve or denied them. And is it going to be that same kind of format that was created last year, or what?
You guys made a motion for this budget workshop
That's
today.
to ask that question is what Commissioner Bolton just asked.
And-
That is a concern, that's the biggest concern that I've heard from my constituents on this budget, that what are you doing to, you're cutting a number down, 40% of what it was with a month to go, and
I think you're failing to understand that dollar we put in there was to get a dollar. We even discussed that in the last budget
Yeah,
meeting.
but when are we going to discuss it? We haven't discussed it. You all have. 3 of the members that vote on this budget have not discussed. All we see is $100,000 and want us to.
The 20th.
Do what?
We got a budget meeting scheduled for the 20th.
I know we got a budget meeting right now scheduled, so we can discuss this.
And Johnny asked a question, the 20th. We've got representatives coming to explain. I told you that we had representatives that were going to come and stand in
Representatives
front of
from
you.
Murray State.
Yes, that was all discussed.
So somebody's gonna, if it was that easy to do, I would think we'd have done it a long time ago. That's not gonna help the senior citizens when their combined budget, the Calvert, Benton, and Hardin senior citizens is around $122,000, and there's $100,000 in that. That's not gonna help them one bit. That's not very comforting to them, the fact that that $100,000 won't even cover their expenses, much less the exceptional center. Marcella's Kitchen is in there, the wheelchair ramp ministry, the Marshall County Need Line.
And as I said, we had a meeting yesterday trying to identify the dollars, Rick. You guys understand the budget. We have to get.
And you said we, 4 people vote on this budget, Judge, and 3 of them don't know anything about it, and we're meeting the 20th of June to try to work this out? When
Well, now-
there's a conference that starts the 6th and so forth? That's, that's my concern, that there's been no discussion, and this is, as I said a couple of weeks ago, this is the only forum that us 3 can discuss our concerns. And that hasn't occurred. We're not, there's several things in here, it's obvious. We polled 2 weeks ago the commissioners, and we can't live with this. The idea is to have workshops. Last year, we had 6 all-day workshops built around 3 regularly scheduled meetings to discuss this budget. That was ample. That was the way you do that. We had the department heads in here. We all heard every person that voted, not just one person, but all 4 people that have a vote to approve or disapprove this budget were present. We had all the nonprofits in here.
We had all the department heads
That's
in
the
here.
way, that's democracy. That's the way you do it.
We
And
got to meet with all the department heads last year, too.
Gentlemen, I answered your question. You had questions about the budget. What are they?
that's one of them right there that's to my satisfaction
I don't-
is not answered very well.
Well-
Let's discuss it right now. People from Murray are coming in, but what are they, what can they possibly tell? They're gonna bring a sack of money?
The reason why I am not able to identify a number at this point is because I've got a $3 million amendment that I'm waiting for DLG. DLG has to approve that. You all have to give it a second reading. I've also got a lot of moving parts with the fire and insurance issue as far as when
understand
some of
that.
those
No,
things are gonna,
Don't. We've been trying to tell you
when are
this.
some of those
No, you
expenses,
have
are they
not
gonna
tried
hit?
that way. You tried to dance
Listen.
around the issue.
It's simple. You asked a question. The answer to your question is the 20th. Now, we tried to schedule for the 15th. Any other dates? The 20th is what the fiscal court agreed to. If you don't like the 20th, let's pick another date.
We did today.
Today, right now.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. If you don't, you're sitting here saying you don't like the 20th. Let's pick.
I'm fine with the 20th, but I think we need, this thing's got to be put to bed,
I'm-
and we've got to be.
I'm telling you as treasurer that June 5th, I cannot identify that number right now. There are too many today, I can't identify that number. It's too early.
We
I
just-
understand that it's not convenient and it's not the best practice, but it's what we're dealing with. I don't know
We-
how
we
many of those
just-
trucks are gonna come in.
As
We
I-
just
as
had a
I said-
meeting yesterday.
Do what?
We just had a meeting yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
We had this discussion, Emily and I. We're trying, some of these unforeseen circumstances this year on the budget has put us in this position. Those dollars, as we discussed in the last budget workshop, it was $100,000. That's what we put in it. We had to get that budget sent to DLG. We knew that we were going to have these meetings. We knew that there were going to be other dollars that were going to be affecting the budget. And we knew that we were going to have those discussions. To answer your question, the 20th. That's when those representatives are coming. Hopefully she'll have more information. She couldn't have the information by the 15th. I was ready
Those
to do it by the
representatives, they're
15th.
gonna, are they gonna bring money, or what are they gonna do to change that figure? That's fine, and I hope those representatives from Murray State University can help those organizations in some way, but it's not very comforting to them. That's one of the top priorities on my list. I can change some numbers around here in my mind and eliminate to put that number back so that the senior citizens and the Need Line and Marcella's Kitchen and the Exceptional Center and the Art Center and the Wheelchair Ramp Ministry and everything on that list that we did last year can survive.
And to be good stewards, because it's on everybody else's mind as well. We've got an entire budget to go through, and that's what we're trying to do.
And we went through that entire budget, 3 of the 4 people that vote, a little over an hour compared to 9 all-day workshops last time.
Listen, you guys have
Hard to
questions.
dance
You
around
said
that
you
one.
had questions about the budget. We've already answered your question about the 20th. Emily's explained to you the circumstances of the budget this current year that we're involved in that may carry over into the next fiscal year. So I think we've beat that horse till it's dead. What, you had a whole list of questions.
I think the main thing is, everybody would be comfortable if anybody would, or if everybody could agree that we're going to try to support those organizations if we have the funds, number one. Number two, I don't have any problem at all. I understand, I did myself some research, and I mean, I think I know at least some of the things that the professional fundraisers look at. I didn't even know it existed until I looked into it, and that was these things with Amazon Prime, where if you buy something, a little small portion goes to a organization that you designate, and same way with Kroger. That's all. I think Marcella's actually does some of that, and that's great. And if they can get themselves funded as much as possible, but I feel like that they're looking to us to hopefully make a commitment that, you know, if as best as we can financially, we will support. Because we pared those organizations down several years ago, way down from what we had. I know Emily will remember, she's been here long enough to remember when we gave a lot of funds to a lot of different organizations, and we looked at those as to find the organizations that serve the community in some way. And in most cases, the majority of the people there were volunteers, at least a certain percentage. And so we looked at that and pared them down. I think that's all that anybody's really looking to do.
Well, and I agree with you, Bob, but in your comment is exactly what we're referring to. Within reason. We can't just jump out there and throw dollars into these lines until we, within reason, go through this. And that's where we're at.
We did not do that last year either. We did not jump in. We went through, my problem with the experts coming in is the timing of it. That is a great idea to do with 12 months before budget, but when you've got, we're going to meet the 20th and go through that, and you got 10 days to push that easy button.
You can't look at that. You can't look at it from an aspect of time. I mean, the circumstances that we've seen with the budget this fiscal year, and the things of like 65-35 rule, maintenance garage burning down, $1 million almost in dump trucks. I mean, there are a lot of variables. You can't compare it to last year.
Sure.
So
I'm just
with
talking
that
about how we,
said,
the
and kind of like
procedure
what Bob
in
was saying,
approving
within
the budget
reason,
and the
that
time spent on the
100,000 is
budget.
what we put into the budget. We know that this is going to change. So the 20th, we hope to have more information for you.
And that leaves us three working days before we all leave for that conference to work on this. If we're not satisfied with the budget on the 20th, that leaves a Thursday, a Friday, and a Monday. That's the only time we have left.
I'm not going to a conference.
We are.
We cannot have a quorum doing that. That's what I say. That's why I thought it was a good idea, and apparently my fellow commissioners did, to meet now and recess and stay here till we are halfway comfortable before we do that. We're talking about the indication that we got last Tuesday,
you
Monday,
also-
this was
you
it.
also
No more
have to
budget
understand
workshops is
that-
exactly what it was said, to review the tape if you doubt that. No more budget workshops, we're done.
The other thing that you're failing to understand is that you agreed to a budget committee. You sat in front of a budget committee. The budget committee has gone through this budget. It's not like it just appears on its own. The budget committee has, in fact, sat down with department heads. I mean, this budget has been put together. We've already discussed that.
We got to sit down with the department heads last year after the budget committee met. Why not this year? Why didn't we schedule that?
You've got, last year when we sat down, I think it was 6 times, 8 hours a day, we went line by line, minimal changes. To me, that shows that we were keeping the traditions in place, but we also implemented something new, and with minimal changes, that was a success for the budget committee. Moving forward, the budget committee can sit down, go through the budget, present it to the fiscal court, and hopefully, you passed the budgets, in the past, hopefully the fiscal court has trust and confidence in your decision to approve a budget committee. I don't see.
That's not the case. It's unanimous. That wasn't the case. That's why we're sitting right here. That's where
All we're
you
doing
said
is following
after
through
an
the
hour
wishes of the fiscal court, which was the budget committee.
This budget, no more budget workshops. That was the exact words, no more budget workshops.
We're not going to spend 6 days, 8 hours a day. The department heads, it was burdensome on them, and they've already sat down with the budget committee. It actually worked, in my opinion, and you guys approved it, but the budget committee was actually successful. We went line by line in that budget and had very minimal changes.
Problem being, Judge, one person that approves that budget out of 4 was in that meeting. That's my problem with it. One person heard.
Here's the thing, though, Rick. It doesn't matter. We just had the administrative code, the month of June. We notified you guys that we're under review. Let's just say if the fiscal court, if you didn't like the budget committee in place, you submit an amendment to change it to where the budget committee's not the one. Who presents a budget? All the years in the past, the judge executive permits a budget, submits a budget. The judge executive can actually
That's KRS.
still have a budget committee. And the budget committee can go through the budget. I mean, it's what we have in place right now. You approved, this governing body approved. We are following it. The executive duties and the administrative duties out of my office is to follow the wishes of the fiscal court, and that's what we did. You sat in front of the budget committee. There's no need to spend 6 days, 8 hours a day. The confidence.
That's in your opinion. Obviously, 3 commissioners, the other 3 people that vote to approve this budget don't feel that way. We think that was a necessary step. We think we're doing our jobs. Your priorities in this budget are different from ours, obviously, or we wouldn't be sitting here. There wouldn't have been a second to that motion, and that wouldn't have been unanimous. But that's where a law allows the democracy to take place, not to rubber stamp a budget that comes out of committee. I have no problem with a committee meeting and helping the judge. That's what you're required by law on May 1st to present us a draft of the budget, and then we tweak it. But that should include all 4 people that have a voice. We need to be educated and informed on the decisions.
Then my comment to you would be, when you approved it, then that should have been discussed under discussion. There was no discussion.
It was that thing was approved before last year, and we went through. You just changed the format. It was that same amendment or code was in place last year, and we had 6 meetings built around 3 regular scheduled court meetings.
The ordinance is what I'm talking about.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
That is what was in place.
Last year, that ordinance was in place too, and we did it totally different. Is that not correct?
I just explained to you.
Is that not correct?
We went through.
It took effect in July, and the budget would have already had to have been drafted at that point and approved.
That was amended in July.
It was amended in June.
June, yes, it was. She said July, but took place.
But
It was.
that administrative code was in effect in July 1. It went into effect in July
Yes.
1.
Mm-hmm.
So the practices of that budget committee were not in place then.
So the 20th, for the nonprofits, the monies that we put in there were monies that we put in there as far as what was available to put in there for the May 1st, so that we can get that to DLG. We have a little bit more insight after yesterday's meeting, but we still have information that we have to get before the 20th.
And I have also kept up with the reason, and apparently the only reason of that budget workshop, because we were told 2 weeks ago there was going to be no more budget workshops, and that's why I chose to try this direction, and thankfully that my fellow commissioners approved that also, because they weren't ready to approve this budget, but the school resource officers that we're going to talk about, and I would think that would be the main topic of discussion on the 20th, or was going to be. There's also 4 people that vote to approve or disapprove that, and because of the lack of communication, I have on my own spoken with the superintendent of schools and LaDonna Williamson, who's leading the charge for this resource officers and this grant. So I'm very up to date on what's happening there, and certainly very much in favor of what was proposed and what they have been proposing for the last 2 months that until recently hadn't been even acted upon. And because if I didn't do the homework to be prepared to discuss that, I would have no earthly idea until the 20th what the heck was going on. And that's not fair.
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about school resource officers and the grant that's been made available. And
What grant? We're talking about our budget this next fiscal year.
Hang on just a second. We're talking about nonprofits. What my
we're not
concern.
talking about nonprofits here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about
okay.
what we've done before. We've skipped past that. I just
Okay,
like
yeah.
one thing. How long? My concern is now they're concerned that how long are they going to have in order to apply? They applied for a grant last year and went through that process, and they were reviewed, and they haven't been, that I can find out, haven't been told to apply or shown anything at all.
No one has been told to apply yet.
But how quickly can they do that? I've told the ones that I'm associated with to be sure that they're ready, but that's what one of their concerns is they're going to have to rush into something, to get this information here if they do need the grant dollars.
Yeah, and I can trust. I don't think that that's going to be the case. Now, as far as what we have at the county preparing our budget, that's what's priority. For them to wait, I mean, they're going to have to wait. Some of these circumstances are
I
out of
told
our
them to be prepared, and to come in,
Yes.
but they're just going to have a few days there to get that information in. That's one of the things that they are concerned about.
Sure.
And so that's really the last point I need to make on that. So.
But my thing is that, we're focusing on the concerns of organizations outside this budget. We've got some serious challenges with this budget this fiscal year and moving forward. Not anything have I heard as far as the pension issue. The pension issue is going to affect every community, not just our budget. You've got the health department, you've got the libraries, you've got the hospitals, anywhere that they're participating in the retirement system, it's going to affect their budgets. I mean, I feel their frustration, but as the judge executive, my responsibility is this budget and the county operations, and this is something that's going to be an annual cost to this county government. And with our budget, payroll is about how many dollars to our budget?
How much our budget is?
Payroll
It's
is-
21 point, our budget
No,
was
payroll
21.
payroll equates to how much to our budget?
I can't tell you that.
Can't
Our-
tell.
our
About
full-
$11 million.
Our full budget is
About
$21.5
And
million.
in that
This
retirement, and
proposed
if you
budget is
look,
20.5.
No one has questioned the effect that the retirement is going to have
We
in
don't
this
know.
budget. It's in there.
It's
The
in there.
percent increase is in there.
We're not even to that. That's why we're sitting here today.
The percent increase
I've
is
got a
in
million
there.
questions.
They phased it in. If it wasn't that the fact that they didn't phase it in the magistrates conference, the Judge Executives Association, both associations that we participate in, they have lobbied for that phase-in. That phase-in increase is 12% for this fiscal year that's coming up. And those dollars, they didn't come from anywhere. We had to pull them from somewhere, on top of the fire that we had. I mean, the budget, looking long-term, if we meet what the cabinet set out at the 48% increase, if they continue each annual year as phasing it in, if it's 12%, we budgeted 12% because we went with the max. We figured that they were going to do the
And that
max.
number amounted to what, Emily?
In 4 years,
700,000?
in 4 years at 48%,
Which-
that's what you got to look for,
The pension
is
increase of
The
12%.
increase?
almost $812,000.
Again, that's where we are, and we don't know. I mean, they keep changing that, the way it's going to be implemented. too.
Bob,
It was
they
given
do
May
keep changing
1st.
it, but I think it's clear that they've
Oh, it's gonna
thrown
go
it
up.
in our laps. And here's the other thing, we're talking about our budget.
166.4.
There are other budgets in our community that are going to be greatly affected, and guess what the revenue is? Taxpayers. You know, we have got to be good stewards of
Marshall
these
County
dollars.
taxpayers, we all work for Marshall County
And so,
taxpayers.
you know, yes, it is a budget that's not pretty. Do I like it? No, I do not. But am I going to be a good steward with it? Yes, I am.
We're all gonna
Now,
be
are
good
there
stewards. That's
agencies
why
that are
we're
going to
here
have
to
to
discuss
wait
it.
on what we get in place? Yes, they are.
I mean, I've told them they need to be prepared, and that's the message I need to send. If that part of it, that we feel like we're going to at least look at it fairly, then, that's what I'll take back to them and tell
And-
them to be ready to
And I can
apply,
assure
and
you-
certainly to be prepared to look at these fundraising specialists and to look at the information they give them. I have no problem with any of that. I just feel like they're looking for at least a commitment that says, if we can at all, we're going to try to help you, because all of these organizations we've identified serve the citizens of this county.
And none of that is in question. And I can assure you, meeting with the staff in the Budget Committee, those discussions have been had. But it's the priority is to get our affairs in line. And in some cases, we have to look long-term. That's why I'm bringing in, when I asked y'all about the solution, I'm bringing in somebody who is an expert, if you will, in the nonprofits to help identify maybe a better way to help. Because if you look at that 48%, all right, in theory, the phase-in is 12%. By year 4, we're looking at about $800,000+ to our budget. And right now, we're looking at $100,000 that we managed to put into this budget. We can't negotiate catastrophic events in the county, just like what we had this year. But that is going to be an annual cost. It's not like we just had a building burn down and we got to buy dump trucks. That happened this year. That cost is going to be an annual cost. And we got to find those dollars from somewhere. And we got a lot of, there's a lot of challenges here. And like Emily was saying, we're still waiting on some of those dollars to materialize. We just sat down yesterday with the school resource officers. A couple of weeks ago, they contacted me and we sat down. We had a meeting. What was it, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, with the school superintendent and the staff. They contacted us. We sat down, and they laid out what they would like to discuss. We reached out to the sheriff, and we all met yesterday. I mean, those are new dollars. We didn't know what kind of effect that was going to have to our budget.
That process started taking place a couple of 2.5 months ago
What process?
with the school resource officers and that program and the grant monies that are available for 5 resource officers through the.
What grant monies are you talking about? I'm curious.
If that wasn't discussed in the meeting, apparently, how do you think that the Marshall County Board of Education is going to pay for those resource officers? It is through a grant. You all didn't discuss that? I know the sheriff knows. I would assume everybody in this room knew that.
VOCA is being applied for, but it hasn't been granted at this
Right.
point. And I think it's a, go ahead and let's get this done.
Do you know the timeline for the school resource officer when they want them in place?
I know that if their wishes come true, that those officers are going to be in place at the start of school.
The start of school. The VOCA grant, if that's what you're referring to, that takes, there's no start date. The window, back when they were talking 2 months ago, when I actually reached out to the sheriff and the superintendent, 2 weeks ago, the money may be there, but the window wasn't open. It's just like it's just like some of the grants that we've applied for. We have to wait for a window. The CMAQ grants,
My understanding
our federal
is
dollars.
apparently different from your understanding, but my understanding from meeting with Superintendent Trent Lovett and LaDonna Williamson multiple times is, and that the monies are there, and for 5.
There's no discussion. There's no disagreement that the monies are there. It's when you get the monies.
Okay.
We got to have this approved by July 1.
They are prepared. That's what I'm saying. The monies are there, and the only question is who's going to supervise those officers? And that was where the disagreement
That's
has
not the
been
only-
for the last 2 years.
That's not the only question. The question is the dollars that are going to affect our budget, because those federal dollars are not available. They may be there, but they're not going to be available by July 1.
Those dollars, my understanding is those dollars for those resource officers are there in concrete. Now, may different from what your understanding is, but the superintendent.
By July 1.
They will be ready, so those officers can be identified and work with through the sheriff's office. He has been in contact with them. They have been in contact with me 2 months ago.
I'm asking you, are those dollars going to be available by July 1?
When they are needed to make the preparation to start identifying those officers, that will be done. That will probably start by July 1 because school starts when, Sheriff? And that's their intentions to have that.
Yeah,
those
I was in the
resources
meeting, I
officers
understand.
in
I don't
place,
think you understand.
period. I do understand.
Are
I have
those-
done my homework and discussed that and met multiple times because that's the only communication that I've had. And I've got to make a decision on that, as well as Commissioner Boland, Commissioner Gold. We've been left out in the cold. We're going to hear it for the first time
Wait a
the
minute,
20th.
wait a minute. Do you realize that the fiscal court has not been contacted until, what? When did we have our meeting with the staff? A couple weeks ago. Can you find that date? We have to put this budget together and get it approved by July 1.
We're keep switching around. We're talking about school resource officers, and
Yes.
And you were contacted by the school system about this when?
What's the date? When did we have that meeting?
I'm looking.
For the first time?
Regarding their request for what the school security is going to be. Yes.
And the SLEO officers was, somebody wanted to go with the SLEO officers, and somebody didn't want our chief law enforcement officer to be over those other officers. That dialogue started.
No, you're getting that confused. Again, as I stated, if you're talking about me making a public announcement as far as what I would do for security, yes, SLEOs. SLEOs is something that the school system can do. But now,
What?
who has the authority? We don't have the authority to make those decisions. The school board, the school does.
But we're teaming with them for the safety of those children, and we're
May
trying to
22nd.
work, we're trying to work with
May
them.
22nd.
And apparently, it's been worked out. My understanding, it has been worked out. for the
May
betterment
22nd is
and
when we
protection of those
had,
children.
see you, thank you. May 22nd is when we had the meeting to Trent called me to say that that's what he wanted. He wanted 4 sheriff's deputies as school resource officers, and that the school would pay it. And so that's what we met.
My recollection is he was supposed to be here, him and Ladonia were to be here, and they were going to be on the agenda, and they called to get on the agenda, and you contacted Ladonia, and then...
I contacted Trent.
And then after talking to Ladonia,
I didn't talk to
30 minutes
Ladonia.
later, that's not...
I talked to Trent.
I understand you talked to my...
I know
my
who I
sources
talked
say
to.
She told me that, and there was not, and it didn't end very well, and then they were supposed to be here on the agenda, and you wanted to talk to them in private, and again, one person that makes that decision was in on that instead of 4 of it. But I had taken the initiative to work with Ladonia and Trent and find out about this, and certainly in favor of it. I see it nothing but a win-win situation for the school administration to protect the children of our county with the resources that are available and the grant monies that are in place. It's a no-brainer. Ray Chumler's been there 24
I'm telling you
years
right
under
now,
the same system.
Ladonia did not call me. I talked
How many
to
times
Trent.
did you meet with her?
On the May 22nd issue?
How many different times did you meet with her on that issue?
Are you talking about the committee?
I'm just asking, how many times have you met with the resource officers?
Listen, you're getting your facts confused.
My facts are
Several months ago.
can be. They're not confused one single bit.
They are. Several months ago, the school has a committee. They came to my office and asked me to be on that committee. We met in my office to discuss the federal grant. They wanted us to be the host agency for those dollars. There was some questions as far as the fiscal court being the host agency, because the school board cannot cut checks, to my knowledge, to other agencies. That meeting was about the federal dollars. In that meeting, I was advised that there was a request by the sheriff for $1.1 million for these federal dollars. And that's when I had reached out to the sheriff, and I asked him. He came up to the office. I said, what's the plan to pay for this $1.1 million? It hadn't been figured out at that point. The committee that you're talking about, meeting with Ladonia, was about federal dollars.
Mm-hmm.
There are different grant monies.
I'm very well aware of that.
For that. I've met with Trent. I was explaining to him the Saleo process.
And you met with Ladonia.
I met with Ladonia back about the federal dollars, not about what the school's plan is for security, because they make that decision. So when I sat down with the sheriff and we discussed those federal dollars, the window at that time was not open. And when that window opens, you still have to be approved. We're talking about federal dollars here. There's no, and no one can tell you when those monies are going to be in our hand. No one knows. August came quick. The school year is going to be here quick. And so the transition went from the federal dollars, which those dollars are still requested. The sheriff's request for those federal dollars are there. But if they want to meet a timeline for August for school, that means locally we're going to have to take local dollars to make that happen. The May 22nd meeting was regarding local dollars, and it was regarding our budget because, yes, I had talked to Trent and told him we would cost share, but we didn't know what those dollars were. We just met yesterday, and
You know what those dollars are now?
we just got it today. And so we've got to go back and look at the budget and find where we can plug those dollars in.
Is that what you gave us, Sheriff? Okay.
And if you look at those dollars, it's not consistent. You can have a deputy R, which has a totally different outcome. You can have a lateral, which has a totally different outcome. Or you can have a new hire, which has each one of them have their own specific dollar amount. So the May 22nd meeting was the school saying, here's what we're trying to do for the security. Speaking to Ladonia about that, I personally have not talked to her about that. Federal dollars with the VOCA grant, yes, I have. I've talked to her. So,
Like I say, I'm well aware of the
I don't think you
situation,
are.
what's going on, and have kept myself well informed and updated. They've been very gracious to sit down with me and inform me, because I know at some point in this budget, I will have to make that decision too, and I think that is one of my top priorities, protecting our children, especially after the incident happened. And everybody's got priorities, but that's I would hope that that's the top of all our list, and the nonprofits that serve a public purpose for our community, that's right up there at the top too. And when we're going through this budget, we're all going to have to eventually compromise somewhere to get this thing passed, but apparently some of us have different priorities than others as to where those dollars will go, and what's important and what's not, and what's at the top of the list and what's at the bottom. But those two issues that we've discussed so far are right smack dab at the top of my list. Period.
Backing up a minute, that expert, so-called expert, we've got coming out of Murray State, why wasn't that scheduled a month or two ago? Why are we?
We just explained this, Johnny. The dollars are not identified. We have so many variables.
We're talking about the experts.
Dollars are not, yes. Yes.
He's not had enough time. He's not going to have enough time to convince us on them nonprofit dollars. Not at all. Meeting the 20th.
I don't understand what you're saying.
Should have started this process with this expert a long time ago, not.
Maybe now for next year's budget. I agree. The priorities, I'm prepared to shift some of this around to go towards my priorities.
We have met as early as last year. We had discussions.
With the
budget,
experts?
listen, the budget, obviously when did the state come out with the phase-in?
When did the what?
You tell me, when did the state come out, the legislative body come out with the phase-in?
It's about, like I say, it's about $800,000. You're talking about pension? $800,000 for us, some ballpark. $206,000
when I asked
for
the
the
simple
city of
question,
Benton, $58,000 for the refuse.
when did it come out?
$196,000 for Calvert City.
Because it
So we're all
affects
aware of
different
that.
agencies. Well, when did it come out? Because we're on a timeline here, and we're trying to get this budget prepared. We've been waiting. There was a period where we were waiting on the state and how that budget was going to affect us. We started meeting on this budget, and we started plugging numbers in, anticipating what that phase-in percentage was going to be. So when you ask, as far as the timeline, I can't stress enough how this budget year has been a very unusual budget year. I've been here 3 years, but the fact that there are so many variables that are in place, we can't just go running out. I mean, we have to make these meetings. We have to sit down when we get the information, and we're still waiting on some of these dollars. And I would suspect that, or expect that you guys would understand that you voted to fund this fiscal year for the dump trucks. Those have yet to be paid. You went to or should have had the training on the 65-35 rule and a 4-year term for elected officials to where the budget cannot be spent more than 65%. If you want to talk about a budget year, this is the budget year where if there was to be something to go wrong, it went wrong. You throw in the school resource officers. We don't, the school, as far as them making the decision, as far as how many people they wanted, they didn't want to go with Celeo's, they want to go with the sheriff's department, that's fine. But how's it going to affect our budget? We didn't find that out till yesterday. And we still don't have 100%. We're going to have to guess on what those dollars are going to be. But there are so many variables, and I don't think that you're thinking about that.
You've stressed many times how important this budget session is, all the different variables. Yet 2 weeks ago yesterday, you stated after we met an hour and 25 minutes, no more budget meetings. Is that important for the 4 people to pass a budget? I don't understand your statement that there will be no more budget meetings 2 weeks ago yesterday.
That is an accurate statement that can be reviewed on the tape of that meeting.
After he and I met yesterday, we discussed that there needed to be another meeting.
Well, the 3 commissioners obviously made that point 2 weeks ago when we polled, and after the judge said there was no more meetings, and I know KRS provides, if whether the judge wants to sit down or not, it provides for us by a majority vote that we can call a meeting, and we feel a need to do so.
And that's what we're doing.
And
You've talked about 2 subjects.
Exactly, and that's because.
Do you have other
because
concerns?
We have,
And it's the
You're-
same 2
we have
subjects that we've
about
talked
to meet, but
talked
that's
about.
that's why it takes nine all-day budget workshops.
No, it really doesn't. Your-
What happened
your-
last year?
Your questions,
your
let's
other
move on with
concerns?
your
That's
concerns
what we're
of this
here
budget.
for, to hear your concerns.
What's the
Do you
next
have any
question?
more?
Last year, when we tried to ask questions, it was, I was told by you, Emily, that when we went through that process, that said you were told not to discuss the budget with
That's old.
Commissioner-
Do you have questions or concerns
Commissioner
about
Gold,
this current
Commissioner
budget that's in front
Boland,
of
or
you that's not been
Commissioner Cobb.
discussed yet?
And I asked that question 3 times. It's old, but it's pertinent
No.
because you're asking if I have questions now. I've got a truckload of
Well, then
questions.
Well, then
please.
ask them.
Let's
But
talk
my
about it.
problem is you changed the format. Last year, we went into all these, had the
Today is
nonprofits.
your
You
format.
started the nonprofits, you changed the
Heads.
thing, and then, you get amnesia when it comes to whether the judge, did he say that or not? It's perfect.
Are you talking about last year still?
Listen,
This
we're-
year is
we're-
important.
We're
Yes,
talking
yes.
about the process
Listen,
here.
hold up a second. I'm not gonna go back and drum up old stuff. We've already gone through that. It makes more sense, instead of having everybody run to Emily when we had a scheduled meeting. So what are your
So
questions?
now we have an hour and 25-minute budget workshop, and we were told by yourself 2 weeks ago on tape that was it, no more budget workshops. That's my problem.
What's
Let's
your,
get
what's your,
consistent.
what's your questions pertaining to the budget?
Don't know where we were last time with, I think I asked last time about Lisa Carter retiring, and why was she put in the budget again? Explain to me why she was put in the budget again.
That was addressed in the first budget
That was
workshop.
addressed,
Okay, would you
yes.
refresh my memory?
You can,
Jeff addressed that, and Jeff's not here.
Okay. Jason,
You-
why, I mean, you're
Did
the
you
one
get
you're
amnesia?
the one that prints this out.
the position that was left in there, even though she may have physically retired, the position was left in the budget.
Okay, I thought that
Jeff
was gonna-
explained that.
This wasn't, I just misunderstood apparently, because I thought, as I discussed last time, I thought when Jason went to full-time, that this position was going to be eliminated. You're going to have a whole instead of 2 halves, and, which is the same, and
What's your next question?
y'all got any questions or concerns that, last year's budget workshop, and we're still in the county attorney's office, we hired a detective to work on the occupational tax and to see if that would improve the monies that were coming in there. And we did that so on a one-year trial. What are the results of?
The results were that he was named coroner 1 month after coming in. Had to get that set up, had to relocate. He has not had an opportunity. He's also been
So the answer
Given,
is- the
would you
answer
like me to
is
talk,
zero.
explain or no?
Do what?
Do you want me to answer your question or not?
Has it affected the occupational tax? I know the other circumstances, but
At what point would he have been available to do that? If you know what he's been up
Then
to?
that's a no, I understand, okay.
And he started in November, so it has not been a year, and he's been very busy.
Okay, I'm just repeating
His
what
salary
I
has
had
also been
noted from last
redistributed
year.
in this budget that you have here.
Page 4 of 18 on appropriation budget. Oak Level and Jonathan Creek, we've got $100,000. Thought we were pretty much taking care of all the things we were going to pay towards whatever.
Where are you, Bob?
4 of 18.
On appropriations?
Appropriation budget. We had 100,000 in last year, and we've got another 100,000 we have with us. Suspect that's going to be used for a specific project, or if it's in there just as a contingent?
It's in there because the water issue is not going to go away. One of the things that's been identified is that a countywide water model for the identify for projects. Case in point, all we heard with Oak Level was water pressure. And when we sent the engineers out there, they identified that, yes, they can get water to the water tower, but it's the line extensions that they can't do. Some of these districts have skeleton water models. So the need for a water model, a countywide water model, was expressed. Now, if those districts and those city governments want to participate in the cost,
I don't have any problem with it being in, I just was wondering what we
What are we
were going
spending
to
it
apply
on?
it to. I mean, we had, of course, we felt like it was engineered long ago that we had enough pressure out there. We were told we didn't, but I think since then we have re-engineered that we have enough pressure out at Oak Level to furnish that tower. We knew we had to have a pump for Hardin for the Brewers Tower, but I didn't think we needed one out at Oak Level from the beginning. But anyway, that's been reaffirmed, so that's fine. Okay. Yeah.
no, Hardin.
Well, no, I mean, I didn't think we had to have a pump in front of the hospital necessarily to fill that tower, but anyway, we've got it if we need it, if at the volume, from a volume standpoint, we might eventually need it. But anyway, that was another question I had. And of course, and then we got fiscal court capital projects right below that. Not sure that we really did any. It says we used $3,000 out of that, and it's been totally removed. I didn't know, I mean, I don't think we really had anything in particular that the court, some of that was, I think, remodeling maybe the courthouse to some of that.
That's under, I think there's a continuation of the courthouse remodel,
Right.
10,000.
I thought most of that was in remodeling courthouse or
Yes.
other buildings that we
Yes.
have.
In the past 2 or 3 budget years, that's been like, we roofed the ambulance service with that line. This year, the Southwest won the 3-year buyout option. There's nothing been identified now that,
I mean, unless
That
they've
is
got
not
something, y'all have got
listed
something
somewhere
identified
else.
inside the building or somewhere on any of our other buildings, I didn't have any specific project. I don't have any problem. I just was,
there,
we removed it.
there are some in the jail, but I think that's yet to be discussed with
I think that was-
regards to the energy service.
Right, HVAC issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we do have some of that, I think. But we don't know what it is, so
Yeah, and that, if you all decided to move forward at some point in the near future with that, Perfection Group had told us that it would be at least probably at least a year before we were going to have debt service. So that's not necessarily debt service for that is not addressed in here due to prior or higher priority projects.
And we can discuss that more and further on another time, but right now, it's not going to affect the budget.
Okay,
While we're on that subject, Oak Level and Jonathan Creek, we have another water district also. They're not included in that line item.
No, and I think that everybody in this county knows that North Marshall has one of the best aquifers.
I agree.
Jonathan Creek
agree.
and Oak Level have some
Okay,
major issues.
I agree. That's 100% agree. They are in great shape. I attend their board meetings, some of their board meetings, and they're doing a very good job. I agree.
Is there another question?
When did we change the custodial, didn't we just a month ago or so approve a firm to bid out the custodial services for the judicial building?
Yes, we are still waiting for AOC's approval. It is my understanding.
I think they already started or should be starting June 1st.
Okay.
Okay, so they've already started then.
Should have
Started
been.
June 1st.
Pretty sure they came in over the weekend.
Okay, my question then, do we still need to budget a custodial supervisor if we bid this out under contract?
Well, there's certain things, if you read the AOC requirements, there are still certain things that don't fall into those requirements. So somebody's going to have to be there to take care of those problems.
22,000 a year though,
22,000 a year for what?
for a custodial supervisor.
What page is that?
This is on the salary package I'm reading off of. Tracy's custodial supervisor is $22,489.54 a year.
That's the package. That's base,
Mm-hmm.
and
Base
is
salary.
that accurate?
Yes, that's package.
Okay, okay. I didn't know with
With
we've done it, we're doing it differently, and so I understand the need. If you've got employees doing that, you've got to have somebody in charge. But I was wondering if that figure would disappear since we've contracted that out starting June 1st while we were budgeting a supervisor and so forth.
Yes, that will be amended. That will be part of the amendment that we present on the 20th.
Okay.
road department, our new multi-purpose building, we're replacing out that, about the road department. You mentioned, we were discussing whether the road department was gonna have a place for their trucks, and you said you thought that you had it in the budget that they would also get a building out at their location. Is that still in the budget?
It's in there.
Okay, I wasn't sure where it was applied here for, and so I didn't know what
What,
line item it was. Okay.
What did we name that, Emily?
I think it's under road department construction.
Under what?
Road department construction should be page 13, no, 14. There's 200,000 in,
Okay, all right, well, I saw one under buildings that had been reduced, and okay, that's fine.
I don't think this is anywhere in the budget, but for how long ago, Kurt may be able to help me out, when we had 15 town hall meetings concerning what we subsidized 911 and looking for alternative funding. That started, when did we have those meetings, Sheriff? You participated in that? Yeah. 14 months, 15 months ago, anybody?
Probably late 16, early 17.
Yeah. We had the town hall meetings. The message to me was loud and clear. I attended 11 of the 15 to more or less not to hear the director and the sheriff speak, that I enjoyed that, but just to hear the response from the people that I represent that attended those meetings. And it was loud and clear to me that the route they chose, the option that they preferred. And where are we as far as it still continues? There's $500,000 basically in this budget that, or can you tell me exactly how much? I don't have the figure got in front of me. Can you tell how much we're subsidizing 911?
It's actually gone down $123,200 to $199,250 proposed.
$199,250 is what we subsidize them.
For this, in fiscal year 19 is what's proposed.
Okay, and where are they going to get the monies that it wasn't at 300,000 last year or something like that?
This year we budgeted
Okay, what's
$322,450.
happened? I know landlines haven't come alive again.
Well,
Management.
their overtime has been greatly down. Their operations has just been more efficient.
Salaries have just gone up. I mean, in one case,
And that's-
$8,000. I mean, I just.
Majority of that savings
my
is
question is none
management,
of that. My
because we had
question
been
is,
stressing that if
where
you
are
are
we-
paying a lot
where
of
we are-
overtime,
Do what?
when you pay a lot of overtime, if you need employees, hire them, and that overtime will go down.
I
And that's
agree.
exactly what happened.
I agree 100%, but my question is still, where are we with the 911 different options and what we spent many, many hours on with town hall meetings, and where are we?
If you remember when Ladonia and Brian came to court with the communications survey that the court had done, we discussed that.
Apparently I don't. As a result, my question is, of the town hall meetings and the occupation or occupied residency, is that not what?
Let me ask you a simple question.
Just asking about the program. Where are we?
If we were with those options, in theory, say use the fee option, what fee today would we put in place?
That process never continued.
The answer
that's my
is
question
the answer
too.
is we
It
don't.
never was decided.
If you would have listened, the answer is we don't have those dollars. That's why
Now, that's a
the
good enough
911
answer.
director
We don't have the dollars.
and
I'm just
Brian went
asking
out.
where the program is.
The court approved to have that survey done to get. That was the one thing that we need to identify is what is the true cost to 911. We knew that we could do better on our management side, and then what we didn't know was the infrastructure side. What is the true cost to 911? Because when we start, before I bring something to the fiscal court that's going to have a direct effect on taxpayers, we need to make sure that we get our numbers accurate. So yes, we had to go back and we had to have them go out and do the survey, which they did do the survey, and I think it was 1.3, if that's off the top of my head, as far as the communication cost.
Right.
So
that's my question. Where are we?
Well, then, if you will remember, we had a maintenance garage burned down.
We discussed all that, so
we've got
we're on
the
the back burners,
rebuild.
that goes.
We got an architect looking to do a rebuild. We've identified that we can have a multi-use facility by putting 911 up at the where the old maintenance garage was. You got the coroner's office that's going to be involved in there now.
I understand all that, but
So
my question
we've
is,
got to identify what the cost is for 911. We just saw where we just lowered the cost, just in some cases, the management change, and so that's going to affect any dollars that would be applied to any option that we want to put in place.
But if you remember in those,
We want to, see this play out a little farther before we make a decision.
Yes, we have got to make sure that we have, if you remember those town hall meetings, the number one question that I feel was asked. Do you remember?
No, I didn't hear what you said.
You attended 11 of them. The number one question that was asked was, what is the fee? And if you looked at Campbell County at that time had just raised their fee, and that was the
Started out 40
concern with
to
the
about 80.
taxpayers,
Yeah.
is that
I
if a
agree.
fee was an option, it was
agree.
one of the options, but if the fee was an option, $38 was a roundabout number. That's not good enough. We
I
have to
agree.
nail down the
I
cost
agree.
for that 38,
But
or
you've
if it's
got to
38
keep
or
the process
42.
going to identify that number. If
And
it's
that's-
been 14 months since we've done anything, and the sheriff.
And that's what we did. I just told you the fiscal court approved for the communication studies to be done. And now we know what that cost is. And then we had the opportunity to move 911 up to the, in the rebuild. So it is ongoing, but we have to identify those costs.
So,
And this was
but
a
the-
full
the
year.
funding source, my only question is the funding source. I heard Kurt and the sheriff and the director during those workshops talk about down the road, it's not going to get any better. We have watched this scenario and play out for the last 6 or 7 years, and we just keep subsidizing. Well, before we got here, we keep subsidizing them a little more and more. Landlines are never going to come back.
You subsidize
And
everything.
with the digital,
With-
what was the, like I say, I don't speak the language, but next gen, or what do you, what's the? Yeah, yeah, I mean, those are gonna be, they're talking about mandating those. It's not gonna get any better, so, we've got to, we can't
That's
keep
already been
watching those
discussed. The
7 or
next
8 years
gen
getting worse and
is going to
worse.
potentially be a mandate probably in the next 5 years.
Exactly.
If you'd have been paying attention, when we did the discussion with the multi-facility, we're looking at a regional. We can potentially be a
understand that.
regional
I've
911.
attended those meetings
There are
also.
counties that are interested in consolidating. All this has been going on
Ever
on
since
top
I've
of
been here,
everything
the
else.
year before you
What we
got
did
here.
is we had the
I
town
agree.
hall meetings, we put that out there to educate the citizens in our community, because it is going to affect communities across the state for 911. The next gen is coming. When, we don't know,
Right.
but we need to be prepared for it. And by doing
talking
that,
about.
we can put that off to the side and say, hey, we did that. The locals in our community understand what the need is for 911. Now what we need to do is identify what the total cost is going to be, because we don't need to be applying anything to taxpayers and then 2 years down the road we realize that we didn't do our due diligence and that fee or that cost is going to go up. Because it doesn't matter if it's a landline or if it's a fee, the cost is going to go up. And the people know that if they attended these meetings. But we have to make sure that we know what that cost is. So that's what we've been doing. Emily just told you, she just showed you in the numbers, we're just simply managing the overtime, reduce that subsidy.
I know,
So
I think that's a good thing, but like I say, I have attended those meetings, and I think that's where we're going. I think it's going to be, because not just Marshall County, but every county in the state of Kentucky, from our colleagues at these conferences, they've got the same situation, and that's where we're headed. There's no doubt in my mind, but we keep on subsidizing and kicking that can down the road. But my question is, where are we? And we're at those town hall meetings, 14, 15 months. If it goes a whole lot longer, those, like I say, we just keep kicking the can down the road. But that's I've got the answer that I need there.
And that process is going to be at least, I would be super surprised if it's less than 2 years. The amount of work that the PVA is going to have to put into it and the amount of discussion and decisions.
Tony Henson and Tony Henson, and the first thing that the PVA in Campbell County told our PVA, Tony Henson, if you can fund that by any other method, and he told the association, of the property evaluation administrators at their convention. The PVA of Campbell County said, if you can fund it any other way, do not do it through your PVA office. That was his recommendation a year ago, 14 months ago, is what Tony told me. And I was kind of surprised at it's not an easy job for them. They don't have the employees, they don't have the technology. It's improved a little bit, but there's so many unanswered questions, and tax bills would have to be generated for people that don't pay taxes, for churches, for this, he went through the long list of, like I say, there's just a lot of unanswered questions, but I just wanted to know where we stood there. My next thing along those same lines is we met, I'd say 6 months ago or something, and had for an energy efficient, we selected a partner, energy savings cost and so forth. It's supposedly budget neutral. Where are we as far as that concerned?
We just spoke about that.
With the
No,
with
just
when-
like
for
15, 20
perfection
minutes
group?
ago. Yes, we just,
Refresh my memory. Perfection group and
Why don't you just tell us what you know?
what's that?
Yeah.
I'll just refresh my memory. I didn't remember in what context we discussed that. They had presented a plan.
You were
We
probably
selected-
talking
Do what?
when we discussed it. You were probably talking. We said that we did not budget anything in this because it would be at least a year before we would be looking at any debt service, so that there would not likely be a need to have debt service in this upcoming budget. And that's what this meeting's about, is the budget.
Got you.
No.
Okay, on page 46, on Lacey's salary, she just retired, or just made it official that she's not coming back. What's the plans for, that's budgeted here, what is the plans for that position?
I spoke with Josh, and when Dez was covering for Lacey when she was on maternity leave, she did an outstanding job, and he was satisfied with her work, so we're probably gonna, we haven't got too much in the details of it, but we're gonna probably have
What is
her
that cost
continue
gonna
that.
be there for?
We haven't even, I mean, she just gave us her resignation. We haven't sat down to discuss that. Emily and I haven't.
Obviously, if we're gonna put it in the budget, we've gotta do it before
We
July
were planning
1st.
to have that addressed before the 20th.
Yes.
Okay. Just kind of an update, does anybody, not anything about the budget, but we're to the special projects, salaries and so forth. Gary Teckenbrock, what's his health status? No, he's not doing very well.
I'm the treasurer. I'm not aware of his health
Okay.
status.
Okay, I thought maybe somebody had heard about his status and if he's gonna be able to continue and will continue in that job. Just concerned for his health. When the department heads were brought in for the budget committee, and we bought a vehicle for today in the morning session, in general session, we bought a vehicle for the animal control people. And the lowest bidder asked what color it was because it wasn't specified if it made any difference, because where they're trying to talk to Wendy about, obviously they want red for the road department, and that was in the specs, but there was nothing in the specs about, so I called Autumn and asked her if it made what color, and she said as long as it starts when we get in it, she's tickled to death, and she said, but her question was what was decided about the other vehicle. Obviously, we heard nothing about, she asked apparently for 2 vehicles in budget workshop. She just asked me 10 minutes before we got here at 1 o'clock, what about the...
I believe the bid was for 2 vehicles.
Did we
Yes.
bought 2?
Yes.
Oh, we bought, oh, good, okay. I knew the road department's 3, but we bought 2 vehicles.
Well, you were
At
here.
At 24,000, the price, okay,
20,000.
okay. Good deal. Should be glad to hear that. Okay,
At least.
right, well, yeah, we didn't buy, and that's the other thing, was in the motion, and I didn't catch that. Somebody asked me that question, those.
That, just for your information, those dollars are for this fiscal year.
Yes, I knew that too, and that's why that. What was that? I couldn't hear.
We're using 25,000 out of when we had the board meeting for the dollars that we manage over the donation account. We met, a meeting ago?
Mm-hmm.
Those monies are going to be used for one of the vehicles.
So we did buy 2, and it was my assumption that we're going to try to do it in this year's budget if the vehicles are with monies. And that's why time was of the issue to do that and buy those vehicles, because it's going to be hard. The sheriff's got vehicles ordered that are going to be cutting it pretty close, and they were ordered when, Sheriff? Several.
This is one of those things that goes into it's a process of trying to get the
Yeah,
things prepared.
April, I just talked to the successful bidder, yeah. That's what
Being built right now.
Yeah, that's what I heard. It's gonna be tough to do that, then get those in there. Well, that's good. That's good. What, and something I just didn't understand, is probably a simple explanation, but we are still paying the salaries of 2 employees at the Marshall County Sanitation District, combined districts, is that correct?
The 2 employees, Jonathan and Lyndall?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And Lendl does a excellent job, and I'm very tickled that we've combined those two sanitation districts. I think that's was a very good move, and I certainly approve of doing so. My question, Commissioner Boland and I were at their meeting for the rate committee that met a month ago at Chamber Conference Room, and I wasn't aware of this, but they are county employees. They've been made in county employees, and it was set up in the arrangements, my understanding, that the sanitation district reimbursed the county for those employees. Correct? Is that the?
They are being billed for Lendl.
Okay. Have they? My understanding that they have not yet started.
They make payments.
Paying. They're not paying the bill though. They're not
Paying
that. I mean, that was the answer I got when I asked.
payroll
Larry.
or
For those employees, they were not at a point right now where they could do what they said they did because the rate committee hasn't. They were going to have a decision in the middle of May, and the rate committee wanted a little more information, or the board wanted them to have a little bit. And they've got 4 business people that got all the confidence in the world of doing that. They just don't have enough information or all the facts or the length of time to make that decision. They need a little bit more information, so they have delayed that till 3 months, end of July or something, so that they'll have more information, so when they set that new fee in that district, that it can be a little more accurate than. They are not paying for Lendl's salary then.
they are making payments on
They're
Lendl.
making payments 100%, or they're paying everything that we're paying Lendl?
They are paying us what we bill them. They are not current, but they are
Okay,
paying.
that's my question. They're not current. Okay.
And we have
Okay.
discussed that.
Okay.
If you remember, an executive session and then even in open court, we have discussed that that district is trying to get where it needs to be. They've come a long way.
Oh, there's
And
no
the fiscal
doubt
court,
they've come a long
the
way. I
fiscal
agree
court
100%.
has approved those employees.
I
The
agree,
goal
they've
is for
come a
them
long
to get
way.
where they actually can start providing the dollars, but at this point, they don't.
Yes. And technically, just like we used to do with the sheriff's office, when the sheriff's office was not fee pooling, we made their payroll. We did their payroll, we issued their payroll checks, and he was under absolutely no obligation to repay us for that. It would have not been a wise decision if he didn't, but he was under no obligation to do that. That would fall into this same practice with the sanitation district. We're not going to have any legal obligation for them to repay us. But right
No,
now,
that-
we are funding a lot of things, we are working together so that they are going to get to a point where we can set up a payment plan for them to get caught up, both in payroll and with the loan amounts that we have fronted them.
Right, and I certainly want to help them in every which way. None of us around this table can say that we just want EPA to come in and shut Draftonville down. That's why we're involved, and I kept asking for a business plan, and I'm much more comfortable now than I was before because of this rate committee of businessmen that have that sit on that board, which they haven't yet come up with a rate structure yet, so that obviously you've got to take in more than you expend just to meet your bills, because they're into us, by my estimation, with the last KIA loan, $5.5 million. It was $2 million before the KIA loan to do the project, to run we just signed on the dotted line for them. Is that, you're looking at funny, is that not accurate information?
I don't have that they owe us $5 million, nowhere near that, no.
$5 million? I don't know
Well,
where you're getting $5
we got a
million.
KIA loan for what? For the project to run the pipe and so forth?
You voted for it. It was $3 million.
I know. Okay, that's my question. So that's $3.1 million along with about and 576,000, 10, 11. That's what, and I have no problem. Yes, I did vote for it because I want to help them.
Wait a minute,
But
what, your numbers? 3 million, I think
you
three,
just said
I think
3
3
million.
million
What
66 was
it?
the
I don't
KIA
remember off
loan.
the top of my head.
But what are your other numbers you're saying? I'm not
Well,
familiar with.
$576,000 when I got here from a project in 2010 and 11, when the same situation existed. And there was a contract, the assistant county attorney might be aware.
There was a contract.
Payback period was $1,000 a month, and to this day, they've paid back zero.
Well, let's be fair.
Take
If we're going to be
48 years
fair,
to pay that back. If that was-
as you stated, you were here when that was in place. Did you discuss if that was going to be paid back?
I've asked for a bit, yes, I have, many a time.
When,
Sure have.
And what was the outcome?
And it has not been paid back.
I mean, you asked in fiscal court when the
That's my
sanitation
concern. I've
district has been
constantly asked
paying.
for a business plan.
No, I'm talking about before. I'm talking about, you referenced the $500,000, which I'm assuming is when they actually put the plan in 08.
That was
They did an agreement, and it was
F&H came in.
$1,000 a month.
$1,000 a month. That was the contract.
Who
the
did
old
you
contract
ask
I drew up,
that they were paying that?
Do
I'm
what?
curious. Who did you ask that they were making their payments?
They never made any payments. They paid zero.
But who did you ask if they were making those payments?
The treasurer's office, they've never paid us, paid in.
I
That was
mean,
before I
the
got here.
treasurer, has no
2010.
voting power.
What?
The treasurer has no voting power. You have voting power. Who did you talk to? If that was the situation, that there was a
It the same when
contract.
you got here,
and,
when I got here, it was,
Yeah, and I would say that we set a precedence. They weren't making their payments, and nobody was asking, were they?
I asked from the get-go, that was my concern. I
But
kept
who
asking,
did you
which
ask?
I continue to ask. I asked the board, I asked them.
What board? There was no board.
There was a board, and now there is another board, and every time we loan them that money, because I'm taking money out of the taxpayers that I represent, this pot of money that I'm responsible for, and I'm loaning it to Sanitation District 2 at the time.
I understand-
and the
I
bank
understand
wouldn't loan
that.
them money. When Cheryl
The-
Miller was here, they needed $20,000, and the bank wouldn't loan them money. Just ask Bob.
But you approved it.
I approved it at the same time when you came on board and the EPA was said.
The point
"Here's
that
keys
I'm
to the
trying to
car.
make is that this
What
agreement
happens
was
if we
put in
don't accept
place
them? We shut
back
Graftonville down. Well,
2010 maybe.
Certainly, we want to help
The
them.
district went into an agreement with the county, and they were to pay that monthly.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have the funds. I mean, if anybody
That's-
would go out there and look at their situation, and if you remember, we had an auditor come in and simply say that there wasn't enough information to even do an audit. They
Exactly. I
could
was sitting
simply
right there when he
not
said that.
make their payments. That's why where we are today, this district is in bad shape. It's a heck of a lot better than what it was, and we've come a long ways.
Headed in the right direction in doing a project that will hopefully.
So those
right the ship, but
employees, I think your
I'm still
original
looking for the
question was
business
those,
plan, and that's why I'm asking about the questions if.
those employees are, yes, the ones stated are county employees.
They're county employees, so that $5.5 million, or my estimate of $5.5 million, keeps rising by roughly $100,000 a year. And like I say, I'm all for the project. I hope it's super success. I hope we get it worked out, the right-of-way and the easements with the Marshall County School System, because they want to come aboard, but you know, there is, those easements are far from being settled, and the project goes out to bid.
Actually, I got easements on my desk.
Do what?
The easements have been completed.
From the school system.
From
They hadn't as of Friday.
The KI proposed plan that was submitted that this court approved, those easements are complete.
Okay, so you're saying that the
You've
Marshall
seen
County
the
High School-
plan.
Yes, I've seen the
Okay.
plan several times, but Marshall County High School and the Board of Education, the State Board of Education has approved that. The ingress, what about the egress from there? That's what,
The last, I think any communication from the school board, and it was in the local paper, that they were ready to go. They were waiting on the district.
that is not accurate.
I think that's
That is
written in
not
the paper, so, but at this point, the engineers in the district, I believe, are dealing with the school. But as far as the project plan that has been submitted to KIA, those easements and that plan are sitting on my desk. I just got them, I guess, while I was gone last week. Somebody dropped them off.
So you're saying the school board has already approved?
I did
all
not
the
say
easements?
that. If you'll listen, the school board ran an article in the local paper saying that they are ready to go. They're waiting on the district.
I didn't hear that first time. Okay.
Do you remember what article that was? What month? May?
On the 76, the sheriff may be able to answer that. Is this officer hire, Kevin, from with ABC money? It says ABC employees on page 76 of the rate sheet, employees, ABC.
That is, the sheriff has two employees that can be paid with ABC dollars. One of those is a deputy R, which is a retired, rehired deputy.
Okay.
And one of those is a new employee that would have benefits. The deputy R doesn't have health insurance retirement benefits, but the new employee that is not a retiree would have to be provided
Are
those
they
benefits.
in place or just proposed? Okay. Okay. Good deal.
And just to make sure it's clear on the record, the importance of those two employees is obviously alcohol enforcement and things of that nature.
I have no problem with that at all. I just wasn't aware of that.
We voted for that for this fiscal year.
Good deal. All I've got until, so we get some of the questions answered that Commissioner Bolin asked and Commissioner Golden asked about our priorities and so forth concerning the nonprofits until we hear from the resource officer, until apparently we get numbers in as July 1st approaches. But
20th going to be soon enough then?
I mean, I really don't think so, but with 10 days to go, I don't think there's, but you know, if you're waiting for numbers, I certainly understand that.
We should have, I mean, that's, I guess what this was about, was our concerns, and so
Exactly.
y'all have got those, and the committee's got them, y'all are members of the committee, and if that's the case, then we would, I mean, we would either, that's what I was wondering, if we're gonna adjourn or we're gonna recess.
No, I have no problem with, when I was trying to get the questions in, I assumed we were gonna talk about resource officers, and, like I say, I'm up to speed, have been kept up to speed with, discussing it with the, and that's certainly, like, as I said, that's high on my priority list, and so are the nonprofits, and, I understand that numbers have to be fit and the monies have to be available, but, like I say, my priorities, I can shift, if I can shift to make room for what I think is important, and what, you think's important may be two different things, but I'm satisfied until the 20th. Certainly had a lot of questions in, but
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn, Judge.
Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.